from Professor Notiel, if I am audible.
Sure, sure.
Thank you, sir.
Beautifully
So
well.
once again, I welcome all of you to the International Day of the Tropics, which is being celebrated on 29th June every year. And you are all aware of the purpose of this special day, which was started by United Nations organizations a decade and a half back. So today we have amongst us a very special guest, Professor Krishnamoorthy Kannan, who is going to deliver a distinguished lecture. And I thank Professor Kannan for accepting our invitation and being part of this special day. He has come all the way from Delhi. And I also thank all the participants, my old friends, faculty members, and then students, and especially students from Guwahati University has also come to join us in this particular event. And let me begin with a small introduction. Co-chairman, how to do the camera? Where is Partho? So I have with me Professor Abhinandan Saikia from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, who is going to help me in co-hosting this and co-chair this particular session. So I am glad to introduce you briefly, Professor Krishnamoorthy Kannan, who is very famous for his stem cell work. And then he has been in various educational institutions in India, starting from the prestigious Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology in Hyderabad, where he started his professional career as a scientist. Prior to that, he had done his PhD from CFTRI Mysore, and he was a master's student in chemistry from IIT Bombay, one of the prestigious IITs in India, as all of you know. He has postdoctoral experience in UK, and then from CCMB, he moved on to the then Pune University newly opened Department of Biotechnology, and he was one of the first faculty members to start a master's course. And many of the alumni of those days are now spread across the world in very, very responsible positions, either as academicians or as researchers, both in the university system and in the industry. And there are many things I can tell you about Professor Kannan. The list is endless. But some of the remarkable things which gives me immense pleasure in sharing with all of you, especially the young researchers, is that Professor Kannan has been a very, very daredevil person who has switched career between industry and the government sectors so frequently. From Pune University, he went on to a diagnostics company called Span Diagnostics. And it was in Span Diagnostics where he did his breakthrough work on ubiquitin. And all of you know that ubiquitin is a ubiquitous protein molecule with so many important functions. And this molecule was one of the work which was recognized with a Nobel Prize a few years, decades back. And Professor Kannan was famous in the news because of his contribution to his work. And he has been in constant collaboration with, contact with the people. And from Span Diagnostics, Professor Kannan moved on to Ranbaxy, where he has done a lot of commercial important work in the diagnostic sector. Then he moved back to the academic world with the founding of the Indraprastha University in Delhi by the Delhi government. He was made the Dean School of Biotechnology, and he was also the Dean of Student Welfare in that university for a couple of years. So as Dean of School of Biotechnology, he started the first integrated MTech program. And I am very glad to inform you that one of my colleague, Dr. Nitin, is here with us, and he is one of the alumni of that university, of that particular course. If the camera can roll, we can definitely sometime show Dr. Nitin, who is with us right now. And then the list is endless regarding the accomplishments of Professor Kannan. He is an able administrator. He was Vice Chancellor of Nagaland Central University for a full tenure. And later on, after completing his tenure in Nagaland University, he went back to the Guru Gobind Singh University. And he was one of the architects in, shaping that university. It was a new university, whether planning the campuses spread around Delhi. He was one of the key persons. But one of the remarkable achievements of Professor Kannan as an administrator in dreaming, he established the first engineering school in Nagaland University, and that famous as CITAM, School of Engineering, Technology and Management, and it has contributed many manpower to the region as well as to the country. So today we have with us Professor Kannan as the distinguished speaker for this special occasion. In it, one small mention that Professor Kannan is a restless guy, always dreaming and aspiring to do new things. And he is now today actively running KKBiotech, under which he organizes online training courses as well as lectures by other eminent persons. I have been lucky to be involved with KKBiotech, although not regularly due to other engagements. But whatever sessions I have joined, I must admit that those are remarkable events he has organized. Recently, he organized an interview with Dr. Renu Sarup, who was the ex-secretary of DBT, and it is one of the important interview sessions I have ever witnessed. So after this, I will ask my students to send the link to you. So, and some of you can also join in the future events in KKBiotech, especially research scholars. You can always get in contact with KKBiotech for any of your help in your research pursuits. So with these few words and without taking much time, I hand over the microphone to Professor Kannan and request him to deliver him the distinguished lecture. I feel sorry that there is an initial technical problem, but I think now all of you can hear us. Kindly please confirm that we are audible and you can hear us very, very clearly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Utpal Bora. It's always a pleasure to, you
can come to the center.
It's always a pleasure to interact with IIT Guwahati. And, Utpal, I've had interactions with him for more than 20 years now. And I'm also very happy that Professor Nitin Chaudhary, also one of our alumni, joined this place, and the professor. And I'm very happy that Professor Saikia is also sitting over here. It's a pleasure because he's also an economist, and I must say, it's a pleasure to have you, sir. And I know Utpal says a lot of things. I think you must take a lot of discount to what he says because, somehow I don't think I've done that much. A lot of people have done much more. But at the same time, I thank Professor Utpal Bora for his kind words. In fact, when Professor Utpal Bora said, you're coming here, that's the International Day of the Tropics. So he said, sir, early morning I get a message, can you talk on this? Now, when he says, can you talk means, not that can I talk, you better talk, So I must say, I had no other choice but to say, yes, sir, because, and then I said, okay, when I have to talk on tropics, I must talk about somebody who did a lot of work in the tropics. And he is Alexander Von Humboldt, even though he did this work in 1799 to 1804. But as you will go through the slides, you will see the kind of things he has done. Before that, I just want to recapitulate. This slide. Sorry. Can you just continue? Okay, so as you see, as he rightly said, this only happened in 2016. The United Nations General Assembly resolution adopted ARAS 7267 in 2016. We declared that 29th June of each year is to be observed as the International Day of the Tropics. Slides are not.
Nice. Yeah, we can start. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So International Day of the Tropics was designated to raise awareness of the specific challenges faced by the tropical areas, the far-reaching implications of the issues affecting the world's tropical zone, and the need at all levels to raise awareness and to underline the important role that countries in the tropics will play in achieving a sustainable development. Just to give you an idea, when they say tropic, really it covers the Tropic of Cancer, which is to the north, and Tropic of Capricorn, which is to the south. So you can see the yellow, red, all these things actually fall into that. And India is also falling into partially into that region. So this is what we call as, the tropics in the strict sense of the word. Of course, we have the Arctic Circle and Antarctic and all that. That is different. But this region between 23 degrees north of Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, which is 23 degrees south, the in between is what? And those countries which we really designate as tropics. Next one. So this is surprising, but you'll be surprised to know that tropics host nearly 95% of the world's mangrove forest by area and 99% of the mangrove species. The tropics have just over half of the world's renewable water resources. India, we are already seeing the water table has gone down, so it is very important. And yet almost half their population is considered vulnerable to water stress. Thirdly, the biodiversity is greater in the tropics. However, loss of biodiversity is also greater in the tropics than in the rest of the world. That we are seeing even in the Northeast, which is happening. So, if this applies to tropical region, so is it going to apply to our country also? So we just not say, no, we don't come under that, doesn't help. But we have to be aware of it because the damage done will affect us, and which I will come to as we go along. Okay, so there are movements in the various regions, and for example, a forest of 1,000 colors. So this is done by a lady who is leading the NGO. The forest where Carmen lives is just as extraordinary as the sea she tries to protect. So the tropical dry forest in Colombia, that's where she does this thing. The most endangered forest ecosystem in Colombia is known as the forest of 1,000 colors. It is distinguished by its many trees blooming in brilliant shade just before the first crops of the rainy season, when the forest turns thousands of shades of blue. And seeing the same thing in Guwahati, they had such heavy rain, and the green color, I saw so many varieties, is unbelievable. Experts in adaptation during the summer, the trees of the dry forest lose their leaves, but with the first drop of the rainy season, the forest blooms again, exploding in a profusion of colors. These forests have protected an incalculable variety of seeds for farmlands and biodiversity. A total of 2,569 species of plants live here, of which 83 are endemic to this forest. For years, farmers like Carmen adapted to the rhythms of the forest. Sudden heavy rains and long periods of drought shaped the lives and crops of these communities, who patiently protect and sow seeds adapted to climate extremes. In fact, this year I'm told Guwahati, Assam in general, had the heaviest rainfall they have seen for a very long time. And now, and suddenly one day you will see you may be having drought around. So, the same issues what others are experiencing in Colombia, we are also experiencing. There is also another group which is very active called Guardians of Amazon. So protecting the forests of the Colombian Amazon while improving the living condition of the communities that inhabit them is the mission of the Guardians of the Amazon, specifically devoted to empowering indigenous women to not only participate in, but become leaders of conservation and governance in their collective territories. Guardians of the Amazon are supported by the Global Environment Facility Small Grants Program. Now, I guess, now we are slowly walking into the world of, Von Humboldt. And, he was a very close friend of Goethe, and Goethe in his Faust 1 Act 1 Night, line 672 to 75, says, knowledge could not be wrenched from nature by observation, instrument, or experiment alone. We snatch in vain at nature's veil. She is mysterious in broad daylight. No screws or levers can compel her to reveal the secret she has hidden from our sight. So aptly said, and it is something, which reminds us that all of us are trying to understand the nature, but nature doesn't reveal itself that easily to us. And we may talk of a lot of techniques and technologies and all that, but the thing is that I think it is not going to reveal to us that easily. Next one. So this is where Alexander Von Humboldt's contribution comes very important. Can I have the next one? So he started his journey from Spain because, he also had the visa problem, permission, all those things you must read about his life. But then because of his contact, he could get the permission to travel to all this country. So he started, from La Coruña, which is in Spain, and then he went around through the Canary Islands. So he records all this. So from 1799 till 2004, he traveled. Then, you can see all the paths he has taken. So first one is Canary Island, then you have number 2 regions, which is marked, then 3. The whole map is shown in those days. So as you can see, don't do anything. So, yeah. So as you can see, he took the, the details are given, which is, what Spanish, what ship got, how he moved to various places, all the details are given. I don't want to go into it, but I just want you to know that, he did all this in 5-year period. Okay. And let me also tell you that Charles Darwin was a great admirer of him later. And Charles Darwin's grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, was also a very close friend of Alexander Von Humboldt. So there are a lot of common things to share. So this is through Venezuela in the 1800s, and these are all very famous places, from the biodiversity point of view. And I'll tell you what all he did. Next one. Okay, so now, unlike many of us as scientists, this man had association with some of the most famous people, Schiller, Wilhelm, and Goethe, all of them, there were intellectual crowd in Germany at that time, what was called Prussia. So Germany was also part of Prussia at that time. So, they all used to discuss, and they were very high-level intellectuals and very well-off people. Because when Humboldt's mother passed away, she left a lot of money for both the brothers at that time. Of course, he is very famous for that work where he demonstrated that, when you touch the dead frog with, in a metallic piece, suddenly the frog starts kicking the leg. That's what he became very famous at that time. Of course, that's called the galvanic theory. But later, what he proposed was found to be wrong. But certainly, this simulated many others to look deeper into the issue. So I won't go into the details of it, but he was also a very good observant in research, and he has recorded many of his observations. So one of the things, these are all the places he visited. So when he returned from Chimborazo, one of the incidents, Humboldt was ready to formulate his new vision of nature. In the Andean hills, he began to sketch his so-called nature Gamalde. Nature Gamalde essentially showing the plant varieties, how the nature, various things are networked. He drew a beautiful map of 3 feet by 2 feet, which I will show you after some time. But I want you to know that nature Gamalde is an amazing, when there were no computers, nothing. This man made a beautiful map of at different heights, what are the plants seen, what are the animals seen, if this is the temperature, if this is the moisture content, etc. You could go through that and say, okay, these are the species which will grow. Now we are talking something, 1800 when he maps this. So unlike the scientists who previously classified the natural world into tight taxonomic units along a strict hierarchy, filling endless tables with categories, Humboldt now produced a drawing. So that I'll show you in a few minutes. Nature was a living whole. He was the first person who said the nature was a living whole. He later said, not a dead aggregate. And one single life, he said, had been poured over stone, plants, animals, and mankind. It was a universal profusion with which life is everywhere distributed that most impressed Humboldt. Even the atmosphere carried the kernels of future life, pollen, insect eggs, and seeds. Life was everywhere, and those organic powers are incessantly at work here. Humboldt was not so much interested in finding new isolated facts, but in connecting them. He said, what is the relation? So that is a unique contribution. All of us are very excited. I saw it for the first time. No, he was not bothered about that. He said, no, what are these things? What did the networking happen? Humboldt was not so much interested in finding new isolated facts, but in connecting them. Individual phenomena were only important in the relation to the whole he explained. They were the parts that made the whole. Depicting Chimborazo in cross-section, Nature Gamald strikingly illustrated nature as a web in which everything was connected. So if you remove one thing, that's what was happening with deforestation, etc., the network gets disturbed. On it, Humboldt showed plants distributed according to their altitudes, ranging from subterranean mushroom species to the lichens that grow just below the snow line. At the foot of the mountain was the tropical zone of palms, and further up the oaks and fern-like shrubs that preferred a more temperate climate. Every plant was placed on the mountain precisely where Humboldt had found them. So that is his greatest contribution on mapping. And how did he do it? We'll see. Humboldt produced his first sketch of nature Gamald in South America. And then from
may I request the participants to please mute the. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So Humboldt produced his first sketch.
Excuse me, may I request you to please mute your mic?
Yeah. So now he is trying to describe how he made the 3 feet by 2 feet map. So I'll show you, just remember to the left and right, he created the mountain. And then to the left and right of the mountain, he placed several columns that provided related details and information. By picking a particular height of the mountain, as given in meters in the first left and right hand column, one could trace connections across the table and the drawing of the mountains to learn about gravity, say, or the blueness of the sky, humidity, atmospheric pressure, temperature, the chemical composition of the air, as well as what species of animals and plants could be found at different altitudes. Humboldt showed 11 zones of plants along with details of how they were linked to changes in altitude, temperature, and so on. This is very important today with this climate change we are talking about. That man visualized it at that time. All this information could then be linked to the other major mountains across the world, which were listed according to their height in the 4th column to the left. So he said, okay, if this is true, is it happening in others? And he did about 7 maps, I remember he had done, which I have seen. This variety and richness, but also the simplicity of the scientific information depicted was unprecedented. Humboldt was the first scientist to present such a data visually. Nature Gamal showed for the first time that nature was a global force with corresponding climate zones across the continent. Humboldt saw unity in variety. Instead of placing plants in their taxonomic categories, he saw vegetation through the lens of climate and location. A radically new idea that still shapes our understanding of ecosystem today, especially now with climate change, what we are talking. This is next one. Yeah. So this is the typical map. I told you on the left and right, there are several columns. These are all written in German, but you could draw any line and you can know what are the plants, what are the animals, what is the soil condition, what is the temperature, what is the humidity, everything here. And so this is what is this person. This is 3 feet by 2 feet. Now this print is available, for payment, which is available. People are willing to. But mind you, he did it manually. That is what is amazing. That he did it manually, and it gives a very. And so all the plants names are there. What will be found where, what conditions, etc. So if, with the climate change, we can also see those plants probably will appear. So that was his prediction nearly more than 200 years ago. Next. So he said different vegetation zones and plant families across the globe he did. So he did a botanical geography, which is amazing. And he was very lucky that one of his co-workers was a guy called Emmy Bopland, who was a taxonomist, who knew identify. So they both, Alexander Von Humboldt was very good in studying rocks. He had a lot of other interests. So because he first started as a mining expert. So he passed the mining exam, he got a job and all that. Just to please his mother, he took up that job. But he kept on doing his research. So in his collection, you will see rocks from all these places. He collected birds, he collected plants. In fact, some countries, he distributed those plants to them because he brought the seeds and gave. So like Brazilian nut and all, he got. It was not known in Europe at that time, but he popularized. So what we are today enjoying is that one man's work which has done that. So he has done this. Next one. Then he also did maps showing fossil strata through the ages of the earth, as well as the subterraneous connections of volcanoes. So this is another masterpiece. He did it on his own. Okay. So this gives you, each one is a subject in itself. And why I'm very particular that why not we do similar kind of maps by school children or college children to map every mountain we have around? Because that will teach us, they will learn how to use an instrument, how to record, how to calibrate their instrument, which is what we talk as a skill development. I think why not we start early? That's why I wanted to show this next. So now, these are all fine. This happened somewhere in 1799 to 1804. Then, of course, we had Charles Darwin's visit, and then we started knowing cell as a basic unit and genetics and a whole lot of things developed later. But when we look at today, there are two types of, one is called deep ecological awareness. We recognize the fundamental interdependence of all phenomena and the fact that as individuals and societies, we are all embedded in the cyclical process of nature. So today we do deep ecological because whereas shallow ecology was more anthropocentric. That is, man is everything, it is human-centered, rest are servient to us. But that is what has created all this problem. Man was ruthless in destroying the environment. So deep ecology does not separate humans or anything else from the natural environment. Now, today when we do research, I just wanted to tell, there is a very beautiful this thing called Pasture's quadrant. It's a concept where we say that somebody can do pure basic research, like Niels Bohr and all did, model of the atom, etc. Now, we didn't know whether it has an application or not. Okay, so there was no consideration of use. Another was use inspired basic research. For example, Pasteur, he looked at things under a microscope, then he predicted that diseases are caused by microorganisms. So even though he observed and he could have left it there, but he went on to do it. And he and Thomas Koch and all showed which organism causes which disease, for which I will come to later. Whereas we had people like Thomas Alva Edison, it's very interesting that Thomas Alva Edison did the kind of experiment which J.J. Thomson actually had done. But only thing, his interest in that was to make a bulb which will keep glowing. So he created the vacuum, all those phenomena, what J.J. Thomson did, he did observe, but being not that educated, but he said, I want only application. Because Thomas Alva Edison had 1,740 patents in his life. And he was only a, high school probably pass. He used to make newspaper. He made a printing press. It's interesting. Of course, we all know his recording, voice recorders which he made at that time. But Edison he never bothered to look into basic research or things like that. He straight went. So you can say, now you might say, what is that empty fourth one? Now, I always say that empty fourth one is interesting in the sense we do gossiping. We predict this should happen, but nobody publishes it. It only remains gossiping. So this is the fourth type of research which 99% of the people actually do. Like what is happening in Maharashtra today, what will happen to so and so. This is all hypothetical game which has no productivity in any sense. So that's what I call it the fourth one. It has no use and is not answering a fundamental question also. Please, next. Okay. Now, you might say, how did this thinking come about? Okay. So, many of them give it to ancient Greece, Aristotle's Organon, where they thought scientific knowledge and practical arts are two separate things. That's why he called it episteme for the scientific knowledge and techno for the practical arts. They said they never had any connection. That was what was believed. Then Francis Bacon, when he started what is called the investigative method, developed in around 1620, was influential upon the development of modern scientific method. Episteme was not seen as the basis or not seen as the basis of technique. Mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy were ends in themselves. Okay. And pursued the pleasure of knowing, not with practical goals in mind. And Plato formalized this by elevating to conceptual knowledge to a higher realm of which daily life was a mere imperfect reflection. His influence extended to the 19th century Germany, where the modern research university was conceived as a place for scientists to pursue scholarship in complete freedom. This model was ultimately exported to the United States in the late 1800s. So US only took benefits of the German research who started investigating, and the rest is history. Yeah. Now I want to talk about this man, Vannevar Bush. Okay, he is the man who introduced the word called molecular biology. Now he was, he was the advisor to the president. So when the war was over, the first was, what do we do? Because people need employment, things to be generated. So he said, he wrote a concept paper called Science, the Endless Frontier. Advances in science, when put to practical use, mean more jobs, higher wages, shorter hours, more abundant crops, more leisure for recreation, for study, for learning how to live without the deadening drudgery, which has been the burden of the common man for ages in the past. Advances in science will bring higher standards of living, will lead to the prevention or cure of diseases, will promote conservation of our limited national resources, and will assure means of defense against aggression. But paradoxically, basic research is not and cannot be explicitly directed at those benefits. Basic research is performed without the thought of practical ends. The scientist doing basic research may not be at all interested in the practical application of his work. Yet, the further progress of industrial development would eventually stagnate if basic scientific research were long neglected. So this is one of the problems the country is also facing. Everybody is saying applied, applied, applied. But that will take us up to a point. So scientists need the freedom of inquiry, which must be research. In fact, Vannevar Bush, when he proposed this, he was one of the first people who identified, Linus Pauling, the greatest man of the 20th century, I would say. He was a young man in Caltech, and people are not very keen to promote him. But whenever Bush pushed him and gave him a lot of grant, and you know what all he did. The whole chemistry's foundation stands on a man like Linus Pauling. And whenever Bush was one of the people who sought that talent, he said this should be encouraged. So whatever great molecular biology advances happened was because of a science policy which was directed by a man at that time. Okay, somewhere after 1945. So it must be remembered. Next. So scientific progress on the broad front results from the free play of free intellects. And we see it very beautifully in molecular biology, like, what's an enriched DNA double helix, then how people store, how DNA, what it does, what is the genetics, how it is converted to mRNA, protein, etc. Well known. That only happened because of thoughts on the basic one. Working on subjects of their own choice in the manner dictated by their curiosity for exploration of the unknown. And later, the primary obligation of the medical schools and university is to continue the traditional function of such institutions, namely to provide the individual worker with an opportunity for the free, untrammeled study of nature in the directions and by the methods suggested by his interest, curiosity, and imagination. The history of medical science teaches the supreme importance of affording the prepared mind complete freedom for the exercise of the initiative. In fact, this is exactly what we are going through a phase where government is wondering if it doesn't have application, let us stop funding. Are we right? It's worth looking at it. So in short, Bush's message was invest in research with no thought of the return, and it will be returned many times over. And pump money into science and it will trickle down to the economy. Give one scientist absolute freedom to pursue their curiosity wherever it might lead, and it will ultimately lead to security and prosperity. And that's why the US could advance, because there is a science policy very clearly noted. Next one. Okay. So Now, there's another question which happens because often we used to find that some people talk qualitative biology, whereas some people talk quantitative biology. Today in the 21st century, students doesn't know whether you should do qualitative biology or quantitative biology. So quantitative research, you need numbers, graphs, typical way of looking at it. It used to test or confirm theories and assumptions. For example, people are predicting, okay, we'll have the fourth wave of COVID. So they make a mathematical model, predict some number, and if it happens with the reality, the model is very good. Otherwise, it disappears. Okay, so people are now, doing that. Another is common quantitative methods include experiments, observation recorded as numbers, and surveys with closed-ended questions. Qualitative research is expressed in words. This is very good, this is very bad, etc. We use very loose words. It is used to understand concepts. And when you look at a man like Von Humboldt, he did both. He did both quantitative research and qualitative research because when he went, he carried about 42 instruments with him to do the measure. And he dramatically, recorded it. So qualitative research is to understand concepts, thoughts, or experience. This type of research enables you to gather in-depth insights on topics that are not well understood. So you try to build on that. And common qualitative methods include interviews with open-ended questions, observation described in words, and literature reviews that explore concepts and theories. So you have quantitative research, you have qualitative, and both are important. And all of us do some qualitative research and a lot of quantitative research. So that's part of it. So statistics becomes very important. And interestingly, India is one of the countries which has contributed tremendously to statistics. Whether you look at Mahalanobis or you look at C.R. Rao, amazing contribution, multivariate analysis, the kind of things they have done is unbelievable. So both are important. Next one. Okay. So today everybody is talking about data science. And data science is only possible if you have data collection. In fact, now I find IITs are trying to offer BSc courses in data science, and they said it can be a commerce student, it can be art student, it can be a science, we will provide you. So this is the current craze. So collecting data has become a very important one. And this is going to be the way research is. In fact, when Google or something has gone to the extent of creating artificial intelligence, that you look at something, only it will give information on that when you search for anything. They think your brain works like that. So that is the extent to which data analysis is happening today, actually. So you do interviews, focus groups, ethnography, literature review, all these are standard which all of us go through. I feel that we should start it right from school days because it's not that when they come to PhD, we start doing all that. I think when they come to PhD, they should be clear what problem they want to attack and finish it 2 to 3 years. Because I'm seeing one of the things which worries me very much, some of the students are taking 8 years, 10 years, 12 years to finish their PhD. Because neither the guide is very clear what problem he wants to work on, or the student is willing to why he entered PhD. So I think it is very important because we should cut down time. We can't waste time. Next one. Okay, so these are all the various, multiple choice. Hold up, people, when you go to any shop, somebody will come, ma'am, can you give me 2 minutes? Can you answer these questions? This is what MBA students all the time do. So data collection is a big thing. Next. So when you come to do so, as I said, in strategy for research is to do both qualitative and quantitative research, and that is the way it is. I won't go into details of it, but I just next. Okay. Now, today when we look at nature as what was thought of in the 1800s. Today, somebody has beautifully put it. You have a supporting system, you have a regulating system, provisioning, cultural balance, essential, and anything you do over, and you run into a lot of problems. And that's what we are seeing today. A ruthless use of removing certain things, having its own ecosystem maintenance problem. Next one. And you also see agriculture intensive. These are all common things all of us are seeing. And what it is creating And what are the diseases caused? We don't know. But these are all the issues which is coming. I don't want to go into detail, but since all of you are familiar with, and with this climate change, we have some more changes coming. So that's important. Thank you. So when you look at it, you have an environment. We have what is called ecological theory. We have a microbiological theory because everybody is now talking, did COVID come because we did a lot of deforestation? That's one point. Somebody else says, no, somebody engineered something and that got leaked out. So all kinds of theories are going. Then they say, okay, some people are not falling sick. Oh, because their immunity is very strong. Okay. So there's a genetic, another fellow, no, their genetics is so good, so they don't get it. So exposure to microbes, infection, clinical phenotype, these are all commonly seen. Like for example, if you look at tuberculosis, the maximum people I'm told affected will not be more than 10. If you look at the diabetics in India right now, it is around 4%. So the number is going to hover around below 10% only. It is never that it's going to become 100%. But why those 10% are getting is the challenge we have to look at. What is it causing? Why didn't it come down? Why it goes up is what one. So these four complementary theories of infection, because of COVID, this becomes very important actually. And another is, we don't know the gap because of the infectious disease being produced due to the climate change, etc. So people have done a lot of theories. That's called biomodeling has become very popular. So one of them is SIR modeling, etc. are done now, and a lot of interesting models, and you will see a lot of people predicting waves of COVID when it will happen, etc. It is very interesting that it is possible to predict, and that is the excitement today. Next one. Okay. So, the environment plays a major role, which we cannot do. Earlier, we didn't bother about environment. So that's why we are seeing a lot of problems. Next one. Okay. So human genetic variability and falling sicknesses, you can always plot a crop. So some people are strong, some are medium, some are weak, etc. So you can always study it, okay? And this is exactly what Edward Jenner accidentally did by 2 rounds of vaccination. So here we are saying when the first infection happens, innate immunity comes in, and these are the response. When you give a booster dose and do it, the second one, adaptive immunity comes. But all these things we are learning now. But Edward Jenner, this did in 1790. I think 1790 or 1800s only he was doing those kind of experiments. So what I'm trying to say is those people observed it and did it without knowing what the science, but today we are able to explain the details of it. That's all I'm saying. Okay, next one. So today, when we talk of pathogens and humans and infections, it can be vaccination one, environmental science. That's a Swachh Bharat we are talking about, how to control vectors like mosquitoes, reduction of population growth, urban planning, sex education and promotion of safe sex, testing and diagnosis, treatment, promotion of hygiene practices. In fact, thanks to COVID, now everybody washes their hand and put a mask and all that. Reduction of contact with wildlife and stock, reduction of social inequality, infectious disease surveillance, biodiversity preservation and reduction of climate change, development of new antimicrobial drugs, risk communication. So these are all happening now. So which I said, so when I say SIR model, what essentially one is talking is susceptible population, infected, and recovered population. So these are the various models. I won't go into detail. A lot of papers are available. So, and you should also look at geological times because it's very important what evolved when. And it just gives you an idea of Cambrian period to Quaternary period, when the humans evolved. So what all things happen. So these are all part of our ecosystem. Some of them have remained, some of them have disappeared for whatever the reasons are. Next. And another thing I want to know, when you look at plants, it is very, very interesting that, there are relations among the 3 lineage of plants, what is called glaucophytes, that is freshwater algae, which are measured in blue there. And then you have rhodophytes, which are red algae, which is given in red, and the green plants. So there's a whole definition of green genes now. And many of them have been transferred. They were independent units, but now they become part of the system to this thing, and this is what we are seeing today, that the multicellular organism arises out of it, and this phylogenetic relationship, we must, this thing, and this is all the time evolving. So I just drew this diagram so that I can see it in more and clear, and many of you, when the video will be uploaded, you can go through this in great detail. Next. Yeah. So I just expanded it for you to read. Okay, next. Okay, so these people have done, our clock 4.6 billion years, what happened, what first insect when they appeared, first time. All these are shown into this. Okay, next please. Yeah, and then you will see that, one of the things you must say in biology system, diffusion plays the biggest part. The diffusion decides the rate of a reaction. And I think, so all this photosynthetic electron transfer, protein folding, everything is a diffusion dependent phenomenon. So diffusion is very important for as a biologist. In chemistry, diffusion is not so important because I can raise the temperature. So diffusion can be made very fast, but the rate step becomes the catalytic step. But in biological system, I can't raise it because if you raise the temperature, the cell dies. So you cannot play around. So you have to depend upon the diffusion. So you must remember diffusion is most important for us. Next. So I just thought, there are a lot of paradigm shifts. So, I just wanted to quickly say, that's another subject, but I just quickly wanted to tell you that modern world science, organized knowledge only happened in the 18th and 19th century. So we saw the systematic. So people like Von Humboldt and all did systematic observation and recorded them, and then interconnected the data. Okay. So every time they try to formulate a mathematical language, if possible. Unfortunately, biologists have been afraid of math, so we are paying a heavy price. But thanks to software industry, they have made the software. So if you know how to enter the data and write the program, the graphs will come automatically. So life has been made easy also in that sense. So today you can ask a lot of interesting questions. Next, please. Yeah. So now also a lot of people have talked about structure of scientific revolution. So there's a continuous progress is characterized by long periods of normal science. Then these periods are interrupted by periods of revolutionary science, in which not only a scientific theory, but also the entire conceptual framework in which it embedded undergoes a radical change. Okay, so that's why you see classical physics and modern physics, the total change. So this includes not only concepts but also values. So during the 20th century, the change from the mechanistic to the ecological paradigm proceeded in various forms and different speeds in various scientific fields. And today we feel deep ecology is more important than surface ecology. So mechanistic model is already thrown out of the system. So profound change of paradigms. So profound change of paradigm characterized by shift of metaphors from the world as a machine to the world as a network. So that is a very, so network has become very important. Holistic worldview, seeing the world as an integrated whole rather than a dissociated collection of parts, if used in a broader and deeper sense, it is called ecological. This was originally coined by the Norwegian philosopher Arne Nissen in the 1970s. Deep ecological awareness recognizes the fundamental interdependence of all the phenomena and the fact that as individual and society, we are all embedded in the cyclical process of nature. Shallow ecology is anthropocentric, that is human-centered. A deep ecology does not separate humans or anything else from the natural environment. And today, many of us are looking at that as an aspect. Okay, so now characteristic of life is self-maintenance due to the internal networking of chemicals that continuously reproduce itself with the boundary of its own making. This is what was proposed by the Chilean biologist. And then the system view, another is system biology, everybody is talking about, looking at a living organism, the totality of its interaction. Whereas many of us, when we studied, we only did the reductionist approach. I'll take a cell, I'll separate, somebody will study the protein, somebody will study the DNA, somebody will characterize the lipid, and think that he can explain life, which we have not been successful. So, and emergent process, that is, when they interact, they give it. So a property not present in the parts originates only when the parts are assembled. Okay. For example, say an egg gets fertilized. One cell becomes two cells. Oh, whatever the number, 50,000, 100. Then they start assembling, and one will make a head, one will make an eye, some will make a nose, will make a mouth, will make a neck, etc. So whole body parts are designed like that in a very symmetrical fashion. Okay. So they are all that is called emergent property. It was not there to begin with. So reductionist approach, as I said, we just reduce everything into its component and we think we'll understand life, but we have not been. So cell is essentially a operational definition for us. Okay. And thermodynamically, it's an open system because things have to get in for the cell to develop. Next. Okay. So I just want to close that. This is where they, Alexander Von Humboldt, that the family where all of them have been worried. And certainly his contribution, many people have forgotten, largely due to Second World War. Everybody hated Hitler. Otherwise, I'm told that Von Humboldt, his name, there were roads in America, in Europe, everywhere. But because of the Second World War, all those names were removed and other names came up. But certainly, the world has benefited a lot from his perspectives. And thank you, Professor Utpal Bora, and the co-chairman, Saikia, for giving me so much time to talk. Thank you.
Because you can take some questions. Yeah. We'll have some interaction with students here later.
Yeah.
First, online questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. I think now we have come to the end of, before we wind up the session. Let me also extend my thanks to Professor Kannan for an elaborative session. I thought, first of all, when he talked about Humboldt, it will be like a tip of the iceberg. But through Humboldt, he has actually given a wide picture of the situation in which Humboldt did his experiment and connecting it with the 21st century's challenges. And of course, not to be, we cannot, of course, also forget the word that he has used, especially I like the word when he talked about diffusion, especially in biology, you talked about diffusion, where chemistry, not talk about diffusion. Similarly, I think when it comes to the social science perspective, how natural science and social science can talk to each other in a science society interface, that was very nicely being put across by Professor Kannan. Now, may I request our participants on who is attending us, if they have any questions, they can ask Professor Kannan, over to Professor Kannan, and also to the audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I audible to all of you?
Audible, right? Okay. Any questions?
Any questions?
Or you want to ask something? You want to ask? Somebody has raised in that. I'm not environment organizer. So put it down.
Can I get it?
Hello.
So I just have a related question, not related to environment, but regarding to academics and research, you have Humboldt fellowships and Humboldt research grants. So I think if the students are a little bit given details about this,
Yes.
maybe benefited in some way.
Yeah. Like, for example, I remember when I was doing my PhD supervisor was a Humboldt fellow. And Humboldt grant gave us, I remember at that time, something like 1.5 lakhs of rupees, whatever we wanted to do. And I still remember we said, okay, we'll build a sensitive amino acid analyzer, because amino acid analyzer at that time, if I were to purchase, it cost not less than 20 lakhs. I'm talking about 1970s. So we said, okay, why not we make, but we knew the chemistry. So we bought some parts and created a whole amino acid analyzer, which could detect at femtomole level. I'm saying 10 to the power minus 15 moles. When the commercially available only could detect at nanomole, that is 10 to the power minus 9 moles. So if these kind of grants gives you freedom to use it, and we built up a beautiful sensitive amino acid analyzer. And I still remember that time somebody came from Calcutta, from Professor Bachaba's lab those days, came with about 1.7 milligrams of protein. We did the full amino acid analysis, characterized, and showed that that protein was different from some other protein which they were looking for. And I gave them back 1 milligram of protein. I'm now talking 1978, which was simply unthinkable. In fact, I didn't realize that I've done something so fantastic, but the lab was so well set, that in a small place called Mysore in CFTRA. And we could build. So I think if used well this kind of grant, I think India can develop its own products, which is what the government is trying to say, Atmanirbhar. So all these projects should lead into developing our own IP.
Thank you, sir. So in the meantime, participants think about some questions which may be not just related to Alexander Ball, but also any other topic related to academics and research. Professor Kannan may be pleased in attempting to answer. So in Bakal is our own. Yeah. So I see here one very eminent, somebody is raising the hand. Who is raising the hand?
Priyabrata.
No. Yeah, Priyabrata Sen, yeah. So I know Professor Priyabrata Sen, who was my master's guide. So may I request the censor to ask his question?
Yes,
his question.
Utpal, very good evening to all of you. Professor Kannan, namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
Sir, I ask you, do you think, sir, the importance that Humboldt should have been given at today's era of climate change, it was not given his due of his contribution as a geographer or naturalist or whatever it is?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you that he got the prominence till about 90, before the World War. Okay.
Yes.
Then somehow this Germany getting into war, everybody from Germany was, people kept off. And I think he was one man who suffered due to that unfortunate incident that for Hitler's misdoing, even some good scientists suffered in the whole process. I think it's more but I feel we should revive him. And I think at least use his method for our children to map the whole North, which I've been requesting Professor Utpal Bora that children should be assigned this. It doesn't cost anything much. So we collect data and they have a supercomputing facility. They can put the whole database and say, okay, this year these are heavy rains weather, these are the plant. Next year something else happened. What are the change in pattern? They can record all this observation. I think it will also teach them how data collection is done, what is the quality of data, what is the reliability. There are a lot of things children will learn. Then they will become research-oriented, I think.
Agree, sir. And I appreciate Dr. Utpal, Professor Utpal Bora, because I'm sure many of the students who have joined today, many of them by this time they will know and they will probably read their the Humboldt, the theory that he has given and his contribution in this era of climate change. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your participation as well as the interesting question. So I see one very eminent, prominent scientist in India who has joined us, Professor Prakash Notial. So he's from HNV Garhwal University. Professor Notial is a renowned scientist in the field of aquatic biology. So Professor Kannan, sir, you have met him during Biodiversity in 2018. So Professor Notial, I am audible probably to you.
Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you, sir. So thank you for joining. But although you do not work on tropical biology or tropics, you work in the alpine biology system, but we have been co-workers today in the Ganga project as well. And on this special day, sir, may I request you to briefly tell few things to the student community on this special day for International Day of the Tropics. Although maybe it is not directly related to your research work, but you have worked in so many different fields. I may be not knowing also. So, sir, may I request you a few words from your side, sir?
Thank you so much, Professor Utpal. Professor Kannan, very good afternoon. It was a wonderful series of thoughts that you shared with us. Thank you so much for that. And to Professor Bora also for giving me this opportunity to be amongst you, even though with an online mode. I have it's no doubt that I have been working in the mountains in the Himalaya. But as you know, the Himalaya shifts from tropics to the tundra condition, right? So we see everything. But then I have also been working in central India, aquatic biodiversity component in the central Indian rivers, the plateau region, the Bundelkhand, and all these parts. So this came to my mind very late, that when I was beginning research, and we are very fancied about tropics and temperate and these kind of words, because I'm primarily into ecology. So these words were often coming to my mind, and then we were using those words, those terms also very frequently. But then we gradually realized that sometimes you say a tropical India, sometimes we say something else. So that kind of, that knowledge, it comes gradually to the mind. And the more you read and the more you interact and the more you see and observe, makes you, understand the things in a better fashion. So, because I have been visiting Northeast also, mainly I did some EIAs for the hydro projects. And so the aquatic biology component and the fish, the golden mahashir, the Himalayan mahashir, found throughout. Yeah. So my interest in the mahashirs.
Sir, continue, please.
Sorry?
Sir, please continue.
Yeah. So I have been experiencing tropics also, and although in the Himalayan region there is harsh climate, because of alpine and all those zones, but as you go down towards the eastern sector of the Himalaya, you find so many tropical elements right up there. So there has been, I have been able to visit some of these places and see and observe. Reading is something different, papers and all that, but going and seeing and observing, I think that brings more knowledge. So I think that is my advice to the students, that they must not stick to the Google and other mobile software that we have on the mobile, but actually go and visit and experience these things themselves. I think nature will tell surely much more than what the books and what the internet and all those things can do. So thank you so much, sir, for inviting me to this program. This is a wonderful opportunity. I thought I won't miss it. And I'm really very happy that it was nice that I did not miss it. Thank you so much.
So thank you for your participation. We are in fact looking forward to repeat 2018 Biodiverse, and we gradually coming towards normal. We seek your blessings as well as participation in future, sir. And it is also a long time we have not met physically. Everything has become a cyber. So we should shift slowly. Professor Kannan has come after a couple of years. And we're really very pleased to have him here. And we look forward to your visit also on any of the occasions. And if that would not be possible, sir, one lecture over internet, we will be planning with you. We see many of my friends over here. So if somebody has a question, please raise your hand. So Dr. Ranjit Kumar is there. Dr. Ranjit Kumar, are you there? From Dayalbagh Educational Institute. If you're there, you can switch on your camera. Maybe not. And I see Dr. Gauranga Das. Dr. Gauranga Das is director of NIFT. He is altogether in a very different field. He was recently here in NERC. Anyway, so if some of you have some questions, and many of you are not known to me, I asked my student to, this was originally planned to be totally offline, but there were several requests from people to make it online, and our student circulated it yesterday night, evening, and probably Notial sir and several of you may have got the invitation only yesterday. So thank you for joining us. I see Mohan Bora. Mohan Bora, are you there? Oh, I mean, okay. Anyway, so some very interesting people will join.
Yes, sir.
Mohan,
Yes, sir. I'm here. Yes, sir.
Do you have your camera? Do you have your camera? Can you switch on
So,
your camera?
yes, sir, I have the camera.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Camera to khulibo para niki? Camera to on koribo para niki?
Oh, sir, parim, sir.
Camera to on kori diasin. Okoman sinagi kori dibo bisarisu.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me introduce Mohan Bora. He is one of the very interesting person in Assam. So he is one of the most dedicated field worker. So you may have some questions to him Hindi, but why I want to introduce you, Mohan, I know him for many years now. Mohan Bora has collected all the traditional rice varieties available in Assam and Northeast, as well as several parts of India. He's a very interesting person. In fact, he showed me one grain of rice having, two kernels or two endosperm. That's very, very magical. And it was so exciting. And we invited him long back to have a exhibition of rice. So Mohan, अपमन आप आपका काम का बारे में आज जो इंटरनेशनल डे ऑफ द ट्रॉपिक्स है और कुछ भी एक मैसेज इफ यू वांट आप देना चाहते हैं स्टूडेंट्स को और किसी को भी और या आपका जो वर्तमान काम चल रहा है उसका ऊपर आप बोल सकते हैं थोड़ा बहुत इट विल बी वेरी काइंड ऑफ यू किबा অলপ কৈ দিয়া শুনা পাইছা
Okay, sir. Okay. सर मैंने सर वो जो हमारा रेनेसेस जो वेराइटी है हमारा वो नॉर्थ ईस्ट का और इंडिया का दूसरा पार्ट का भी कुछ वेराइटी है मेरा पास अभी 400 से ज़्यादा वेराइटी है ऑलरेडी सम ऑफ द वेराइटी आई हैव sowing the seeds and the cultivation period is going on, sir. I was in my own home dress, so that is why I was late to on my camera. I just come my field and attend the meeting. So, sir, this all the seeds have different type of nutrition and different type of some of they have capacity to control the pest, some of the particular pest, and some of variety have drought resistant, and most of the variety and flood resistance like cocoa bao, Rongada cocoa bao, Zul bao, that type of variety have flood resistance capacity. And I think that all these seeds have an important role in our biodiversity. And most of the variety we have lost due to coming different type of variety, high yielding variety. So all the genetic power is important for our future generation. And but basically it's a nutritive value. And after coming green revolution, we concentrate on grow more, and we need more production. But we totally ignore about the nutrition value of the seeds and food. And one question from my side to Prakash sir, talking about the aquatic life. And sir, I have noticed lots of our aquatic life is disappear. Sir, one fish variety called Sengeli mas, sir, they like to live in such type of place where the mosquito laying egg, and that type of fish like to eat. That type of fish like to eat the mosquito egg. So we have lots of. I have noticed lots of that type of biodiversity always disappear from our village, from our river. So, sir, if you can do anything regarding this matter, and if you have any program to aware the people how we can conserve this important aquatic life, so it will be very good for our future. And this is my request, and that's all from my side. Thank you, sir.
There is some network problem, but probably आप गम्बूसिया एफिनिस की बात कर रहे हैं, फिश की ना, जो मॉस्किटो के लार्वा खाती है.
हाँ.
Yes, sir. I don't know the English name and the scientific name, sir. We call it Sengeli mas. Maybe Utpal Bora sir can tell you.
Yes.
What is the
I unfortunately I also don't know, sir, but we have some people from Guwahati University in zoology. They are looking into it. So it is a fish without scales, dark colored fish, small one, maybe size of this much. Yeah,
We can't hear them.
yeah. So your voice is not audible. Maybe is it switched off or switched on? This microphone. Huh?
Yeah,
It's fine. It's fine. No, it's fine. It's like that.
Is my audio coming?
So now it is coming. It is coming. Yeah.
Okay, so this fish is actually an exotic, I think so. Yeah. And it has been introduced by the mosquito control department at number of places. But it as soon as it enters any water body, it is a breed fast and establish a population over there. तो ये आपने क्या बोला लास्ट में, मैं सुनी क्या करना है इस फिश का?
सर ये जो सर ये इसको कैसे लाया जाए, ये पॉपुलेशन कैसे बढ़ाया जाएगा गांव में, और कैसे कंजर्वेशन करना चाहिए इसको, क्योंकि वो मस्क्यूटो हमारा बहुत
मोहन जी
सर. हाँ जी सर.
इसका पॉपुलेशन रखना पड़ता है. इसको आप एक छोटी सी शीशी में भर के ले जाओ और किसी पॉन्ड में छोड़ दो, वो अपना बढ़ता है.
सर मैं भी ढूंढ रहा हूँ सर. हमारे गांव में हर गांव वो ये कम पानी में भी रह सकता है, लेकिन मैं ढूंढ रहा हूँ सर, कहीं पे नहीं मिल रहा है.
नहीं, लेकिन मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि हमें नहीं करना चाहिए वाटर बॉडीज में. अगर छोटे छोटे पॉन्ड्स है वो तो ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं.
Yeah, I think there is some voice disruption, but I think it's a very interesting topic. So Prakash, if you can hear me, we just found out the name of the fish is Channa beheri. It's a Channa species, right? Channa so any Channa species, Channa beheri, Blaheri.
Okay, but does it have? I mean, what is the size of this fish? Longer than a finger, or of the palm
Uh,
size?
Maximum 6 inch. Maximum 6 inch. Maximum 6 inch.
Half feet.
Half feet. Half feet, yeah. Maximum. The largest one. Yes. Okay, thank you. Now, I just want to add to this discussion. Mohan is trying to not only conserve the diverse rice varieties in Assam and Northeast, and also some parts from India he has collected. So he is also trying. He has also started one rural library for the children of his village and adjoining areas. So if any of you are interested to donate some books, some old books which is of no longer any use to you, or you have difficulties in maintaining those books, so kindly please contact me. I will get you connected to Mohan, and we can donate him those books. So Mohan, how is your library running right now?
Yes, sir. I have collected some books
Yes.
from my friend, and sir, it will be a great help for me, sir. If anyone, all book will be enough, sir. All if you can donate me all books,
Yes.
it will be great help, sir, for our people
Sure, sure.
and for me.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you so much. And I think we are running out of time. Some of the students has to go back to their universities. So I now request Professor Saikia to give a small concluding remark. And some gifts are there. Yeah.
Yeah. Am I audible to all of you? Okay. So since I was told to give a concluding remark, because that's something which I always find it difficult, because whenever you have a good session, interesting session like this, at some point different questions comes in. And but anyway, it was the session was really interacting today, and in the sense that a lot of things we can learn from the study of Humboldt, and that Professor Kannan has actually placed in front of us. And as I've told also just after he finishes his session, that it was also a moment in which you can actually draw some conclusion of linking the whole natural science context with the social science context. Because end of the day, when you talk about the 21st century and the challenges we all are living in, where climate change has become the denominator for every issue that we take today as a decision, there how the role of Humboldt can actually play an important role. And Humboldt did mention about networking. He did not mention about only about the species, but about the relation, which was a very important thing that we need to emphasize at this juncture today, because many a times the tendency of going by the idea of reductionism versus holism is actually in a very is always in a contestable mode. So the idea is now to think about more in terms of a holistic mode, where we can actually think once and again, given a chance to the ideas of deep ecology. No doubt that deep ecology, of course, at some point has some sort of criticism, but as Mahatma Gandhi has also once said, that there is everything to everyone's need, but nothing to everyone's greed. We have to actually now come up with an equation, and followed by that with whenever whose understanding that whenever we have to also think about an innovation in the frontiers of science and technology. How do we actually orchestrate, or how do we actually design those trajectories of science and technology which can actually bring certain ethical issues in place, keeping in mind not only the anthropocentric needs, but also the biocentric needs and also the ecocentric needs of future. With that, I once again thank the entire participants, and also Professor Kannan once again from bringing this topic of Humboldt, his contribution to biological science, also connecting with the social science in today's era is really interesting, and I think it will have an impact in future as well. And also to Dr. Utpal Bora for giving me also an opportunity to be here and also to listen to this beautiful lecture. Thank you once again. Thank you all.
Thank you, all of you. So before we end up, I request my co-chair to felicitate Professor Kannan with a traditional gamucha. And I also request all of you to switch on your mic and give a round of applause for Professor Kannan. I request my colleague, Dr. Nitin Chaudhary, to give Professor Kannan a small memento.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And also my co-chair, a small memento from the center. Thank you, all of you. We'll be winding up the online session, but we are going to have a small interaction in the offline mode in the nearby room. Thank you. So we look forward to meet again. Bye bye, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
इसको डिस्कनेक्ट कर दो
Hello. Hello.